No, you can do it. No, you can do it. Hi, welcome back to WVCW's YouTube channel, I guess. I'm Mason Rowley, music director over here. Right after a Chalkboard session with the amazing Wrong Worshipers, as you can see, they're sweat-drenched. You guys, first off, just go ahead and introduce yourselves to the people at home.
I'm Milo. I'm the drummer.
I'm Nick. I'm the bassist and vocalist.
I guess just to start off, what have you guys been listening to recently?
Ooh, what have I been listening to? Scrambles by Bomb Music Industry. That album is just all day, every day. Incredible.
A lot of Slipknot. That's kind of all the time. I want to think of something more unique.
We had the car ride we did the Lorna Shore kick.
Oh yeah. Lorna Shore is pretty good. Stuff like that.
On sort of the idea of things you guys listen to, listening to you guys' music, especially performing live, you can hear a lot of different influences. Like in your song, Not Your Pawns, your recent single, I can hear like Dead Kennedys, Queens of the Stone Age, obviously your normal influences in Royal Blood and Death from Above 1979. When you think about your influences as a band and as like individual players, what strikes you as the most prominent and what strikes you as the most like esoteric, weird influence on your music?
I think probably like what most directly influences us, or at least me, like melody-wise, maybe 2000s punk, and all the stuff you just listed, like that kind of 90s and 2000s rock. I think for me, this is kind of a weird one. It affects my songwriting mindset, but not really what I'm actually writing. Growing up, I was a really big fan of that like early 2010s, like when pop got really like dancey and sort of electronic. So I think we're kind of inspired by electronic music and dance music a lot. It's sort of that like pop, catchy, and like danceable aspect.
I feel like, for me, like drumming wise, Jimmy Chamberlain from The Smashing Pumpkins is a big, I just love his work. But I guess, I think a weirder influence was like, as a drummer, trying to harness the emotion of like EDM and like how that makes you feel, like those crazy drops and like just, I feel like that's a very emotionally adrenaline focused genre. So I think trying to get that in our music is a fun challenge.
I know you're both jazz trained, basically.
Sort of.
Sort of.
I'm more classical. He's jazz.
Do you find that comes out in your music at all, or is it?
Personally, yeah. I think we have a lot of, that's like some songs secondhand. Like I feel like there's like funk-esque jazz fills I like to do. I think in my filling at least I like to bring out, I try to do more unique fills, and dynamically is where I really try to like showcase that jazz-esque playing.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how I think of melodic stuff, and harmonic motion is like classical music. Don't know enough to name a specific era.
The old kind.
A big part of you guys' sort of reputation is your live performances. While we're on the topic of like influences, you guys do a lot of moves and like specific like you can almost plan out the beats of a Wrong Worshiper show, and on occasion you'll do something really out there. I saw you guys a while back and you had Black Liquid, a local rapper, come out and do like a verse with you all. When you go to live shows, do you sort of take notes on what other people are doing and bring them back to your thing, or is it all kind of homespun?
That's a really good. It's very big of a mix. Very much of a mix. Like I think in quarantine, starting this band on YouTube, we watched a lot of live shows, and what we did is we would play this Porchella, and they would always be recorded. So we would be watching live shows, and then we would watch our live shows. We'd take notes and we'd critique, and we'd do like those live streams in the basement, and those were automatically recorded. So it was like quarantine was really just like us honing in, trying to get the perfect live performance. And there's a lot of like Bum the Music Industry at the drive-thru. Like there's like these guys that would just do these crazy things live, and we're like, we want to do that.
I definitely. There's a lot of stuff we just kind of come up with, but we're always watching other bands. bands we play with, bands we see live, bands we see on the internet, kind of bringing all this cool stuff in. It's like, if it's your band and you're live, you can do whatever you want. Like, I guess as long as you don't punch a hole in the wall, there kind of are no limits. So we just try to go as big as we can.
And some of the stuff is like on the fly. Like, I think in the Camel, like running around the drum kit, like trying to play it at the same time. Like, I think that idea was 5 seconds before I did it. Like, and sometimes we have shows where those ideas do not work, and that is embarrassing. But it's so worth it to like have those results.
You guys, on the topic of live performances, are an incredibly sort of. You guys play incredibly tightly. You guys I don't really notice any variation in your sets, not in a bad way, but in like a in sort of like a is that all honed through practice, or is that sort of like a natural like harmony type of thing with you two?
That's more like the power of friendship. Like being like, well, we've grown up next to each other since, and I came home from the hospital. He was already there, so I guess like we just spent so much time together, and like I guess like quarantine was like just practicing. And I think one thing that almost kind of helped is since we practiced over the fence, like I'd bring up my kit and he'd bring up his bass, like, and we'd practice in each other's backyards from a distance away. So I think that being the first thing, like practicing with that like space
delay
between and that delay, like we had to be tight. So I think that was kind of like a really good.
And I mean, I think he's a pretty good drummer, so he just plays in time and it makes me sound in time.
I kind of play in time.
Also, I mean, we write this stuff together, and there are a lot of songs that we just kind of never played not together. So we do just have a lot of practice in that area.
And sort of looping in your earlier comments about 2000s sort of pop music, another sort of facet of your live shows is your covers of people like Taylor Swift. I saw you do Mr. Brightside a while ago. Where did that, for the idea of sort of having like a pop song cover as like a staple of your set?
We just want to do it. I think there are groups of people that really, really like it. And I think there's also kind of a group of people that sort of view it as like sort of a bit,
but both,
which like is fine, but also we just really like Taylor Swift. Like we're not doing it ironically. We just like that music.
I was saying like cover it. We've been doing that consistently, and like it's gotten scary. Like Taylor Swift fans are scary. Like if we miss anything in those songs, you cannot mess up a Taylor Swift song live, or people will get you.
Arguably more aggressive than the punk fans that are coming at it.
Easily.
Well, nobody knows what our songs are supposed to be.
Exactly. I think we're recently doing like that Pierce the Veil song. That's like the perfect middle ground. Like,
Okay, sort of moving on from that, you, like I said earlier, you all have recently dropped a single, Not Your Pawns. It's not your first foray into political music, but this one, I guess first off, what was the inspiration behind making the song in the first place?
There's those model policies, I think, that got introduced in September by Glenn Youngkin, where he's just kind of trying to discriminate against trans people in schools and make it harder for them to exist and be happy. And that made us pretty mad. So we were like, let's write a song about it. Music is like our way of processing stuff. So we wanted to do that.
Yeah, I definitely feel like throughout our discography, like that is like, I feel like lyrically, like our personal, I feel like our strongest, like just the most direct, the most, like just putting that message out. I was really happy with how we were able to convey that.
In the process of songwriting, especially for a song like that, how does it go? Do you guys start off with like a riff or a structure? Because you guys have very multi-phased songs. Your songs go through movements to a point where it's not sort of, it doesn't feel like it comes across through just jamming.
Yeah, that song was we had that song for a year. Like that was.
Yeah, a lot of those riffs had existed kind of separately for a while, and we didn't really know where they were going to end up. We kind of assumed they'd end up on our next album or something, but we kind of spontaneously decided to do this single, You're like, oh, well, this is like this riff feels angry.
Mm-hmm.
Let's kind of base it around that.
And I feel like with this song, like we had the riff and then introducing the drum part, and then the drum part changed the riff, and like it all kind of gears turn glued together.
So I know you all are kind of gearing up for another release at some point. Inevitably, all bands are. But
Get ready.
Going from sort of all the way back from your first single, Halloween, to
oh god, cut that out.
That song doesn't exist.
Going from all the way back there to sort of now, how do you find your writing process has changed?
I'd say it's changed a lot.
I think, yeah.
Yeah. We're definitely more focused on like making it a cohesive idea. I mean, with this recent single, you know, it's still kind of like we have riffs, we have ideas, and then they sort of all come together. But back then, it was just, okay, we have 2 riffs, verse, chorus, we're good.
I think one thing that really changed our sound is we started doing demos. Like originally we'd just play the songs, maybe do a voice memos, and then like call it a day. But what we've been doing now is like I have like a little interface, and so we just sit in my room for hours and we make demos, which gives us another writing phase, and that's what we did for the single, and that's how we were able to add that electronic breakdown of like that crazy like synth era, and like just add entire parts of the song that originally weren't there, because you get to look at it from the outside and as a listener be like, what do I want to hear? Yeah, that's just been very helpful.
Yeah, and I think we're going next month. I think we're going July. We're gonna start recording our second album, and this has been a really interesting writing experience, because we've sort of been working on all these songs just over time for maybe like 2 years now. We'll work on it a little bit, work on something else a little bit. So as our songwriting has changed, we're still working on this older stuff and kind of making it new. So that's been interesting.
Right, because we finished our first album, you know, I think we were like 15, and like right when we finished that album, we started working on the second album. But then we had the EP and the single, which are almost like side paths from that. So it's like been 3 years in the making almost. So we're really excited for this next project.
And sort of reviewing your older performances that you have on YouTube to now, I noticed that for a lot of your older songs, you sort of managed to refresh and update them through the live performance aspect of it. Could you ever see in the future a re-recording of some of those into more of like an enhanced format, or?
We've thought about that. I think if we had a good amount of free time and a good amount of money, we might. It's because there's songs that I feel like we could perform a lot better now, and like the songwriting wasn't necessarily bad, but we just weren't at the level that we really wanted it to be at that point.
Yeah, I could imagine like we do a live show and it's like really well mic'd up and we release that as a live performance. But I sometimes struggle to imagine like going back into the studio to like redo it.
I think,
but it would be fun.
We've done this once before on the EP. We re-recorded a first album song. The most realistic thing would probably be like over future releases, we might take a song off the first album that we liked and put it on another album re-recorded.
I'd love to redo Secondhand. Like, I think the first album, I thought it was great, but I think what we've done with it live, it's just become like one of my favorites. I'm just really happy with it.
I know you all are recent high school graduates. You guys just recently left.
Maybe like 2 weeks ago.
Now that you sort of have now that you've hit that milestone and are sort of free to do whatever you kind of want, what are sort of your plans going forward from here?
Well, I guess we're doing, so this summer we're going to do second album, just try to get that recorded, and we're going to try to do our first tour.
Nice.
Mid-Atlantic, go up to New York, do some stuff. But yeah, no, it's like, it's been weird not being in high school and having the band, but it's been because it's like now it's your job,
Mhm.
which is it's great. It's like it's
Yeah.
really fun.
Because you all were doing a lot of shows for you to have the free time of a high schooler.
Right. It was, yeah.
And do you see sort of like your number of shows ramping up or sort of slowing down from here? Because I see they've become a lot more of a, not a production, but it's like there's a lot more going into it now. There's a lot more stage antics and that kind of thing that could maybe make it.
Right.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I think the biggest factor in that is going to be going to different colleges.
Yeah. Well, it'll definitely be harder to play like multiple shows a month when the school year comes around, because it'll be like 2.5 hours apart. But we're still going to try to keep that up. I think right now, shows have actually been slowing down a little bit, which is, it's nice to get a break, and we need to songwrite.
We kind of
all
did
that
make
stuff.
happen because
Yeah.
we needed to prepare. But yeah, I feel like this college is almost going to be a little blessing in disguise, because right now we're doing a lot of little shows, and I feel like it's great to get our name out there. But we'll like post the flyer a week before. It'll be a small show. A lot, and like I think having the fewer shows, we can have the time to really promote and make a big event out of it to make like a stronger impact.
The
on each
more
one.
shows you have, the harder it is to promote them, especially if you also have homework.
Right. But no, and that is no hate on doing a lot of shows though.
Yeah,
If you're an early band, I feel like as many shows as possible all the time was really successful for us.
And also, our philosophy is we like playing live, so it's less about the marketing and logistics.
Yeah, we were just
but
we get to play another show.
We get to
Let's
play
go.
live, sure.
Speaking sort of about that sort of getting your name out there aspect, I know recently you all played a show with a band coming through the area, Big Fun.
Oh my god.
They were amazing.
It was you all and Saturn Death Cult. How'd that come about happening? Because they're a pretty sizable band.
Yeah. So huge thanks. I think it was Midnight Taxi that recommended, or Fellowship. I think both of those had a factor in getting our name to them. But that was an amazing show, and they were a lot bigger than we thought they were, and that was incredible.
Thought some act was coming through town.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Who are these nobodies? No,
That's another thing when you have a lot of shows. It's like you don't always like check out every single band. So sometimes you like play a show and then you'll be like, wait, these guys are like.
that did not happen with Big Fun.
Really?
Though.
Yeah.
Going in, we were like, holy shit.
Yeah.
This is crazy. The other band with that is Friend.
Mhm.
They're the punk trio out of Philly, and they're just breathtaking, and they're also getting pretty sizable, and like the fact that we're like getting to tour with them, it's like what? And the fact we're both Magic the Gathering players is even better.
Trying to think about anything else. I always say this every interview. I look towards people off screen and ask, any questions from the audience?
Yeah.
But
Q&A time.
yeah, I mean, yeah, killer performance, killer
Thank you.
job, y'all. I think you guys. It's only up from here for y'all.
Yeah, we're excited.
Yeah.
Gonna shout out July 7th at the Camel
Mhm.
with 10 Pounds Down, Saturn Death Cult.
Mhm.
Get a
Anything else y'all want to shout out? Bands, acts, movies,
New single,
anything?
New
Not Your
single.
Pawns, on all streaming services.
If you haven't watched Everything Ever All at Once, watch that. It's a really good
Yeah, it's a
movie.
pretty good movie.
That's really good. Yeah,
Cool.
that's all I got. Thank you for the opportunity.
No
Thank
problem,
you guys
man.
so much. Yeah.
Thank you for the show. It rocked. We got to come up with a call off at some point.
Signing off.
Signing off from blasting to you from Richmond Airwaves.
Wrong word.
Wrong
Wrong worshipers, everybody.